today on my vlog, this is called Doing Stupid Shit with Joe Parody. So if you've ever had a question about how we moved all of that old machinery out of all the old mills, it was like this, but 10 times more dangerous. We call it Yankee Ingenuity. Looking back at that young kid, it was stupid, but I guess no risk, no reward is what it boils down to. And once they're done here, I'm gonna tell you a story about the first loom we found in the old mill. It's a wonderful story, and this machine was a real big part of that. This one Joe's on right now. Otherwise known as Yankee Ingenuity. I think that's a discussion of what is Yankee Ingenuity and what is just dangerous. Listen, I see him. I'm gonna talk more about Yankee Ingenuity, or what is your dad trying to do here? He's touched. This is called Not All Screws Tight, is what it's called. This forklift has been around for a long time. This is how we used to get all of our warps out of the old factory back in the day. Joe is awfully proud of himself. I love your safety glasses and your hard hat. What's wrong with your family?
Nothing wrong. They're getting shit done.
Give me the difference between Yankee Ingenuity and just like dangerous.
This is the education you get when you have no money. You have to build what you need and get it done.
Okay. You built this.
I built this. Had to butt two pieces together, because it was all scrap iron.
You built this whole rig to slip onto the forks?
Yep.
Reminds me of the old gantry we built to move the loom warps around.
See that right there? That came out of one of your machines you had in the chocolate bar factory.
Oh yeah. Just taking shit from the factory?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's slippery.
Okay. Oh. What? Why do we have... What are we doing here? We starting a freaking revolution? Oh my lord.
No, this is...
What?
This was just in the safe. Had to get it out and move it.
Oh, this was in the safe? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were starting.
So if I do, it'll be this one and this one.
Okay. You're crazy. All right, let me finish this up. Number one, Joe's an absolute wild man. The dude, he's about to be 70 years old. He's maybe a second degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. He world champion jiu-jitsu, gold medalist. And he won, I think, a silver a couple years ago. And I hope when I'm 70, I have as much energy as that guy. But the story behind that piece of equipment, that forklift, it literally saved our ass. When we started building Origin, we didn't have any capital. I didn't have any personal capital. Nobody was going to invest in the idea because it was just so high risk. Banks aren't going to invest in this crazy idea to bring back manufacturing. I really didn't dare to ask friends and family, not that they would have had the money, but what I did do is I asked them for help. And Joe was the first one to say yes, and the first one to volunteer his time and equipment, and he had that forklift. I think he bought it for like $700, and that did everything. Anything we needed to move, anything. Like during the springtime, we call it mud season, when we needed to move fabric, we would load it on that forklift and we would drive it. The big truck, the big rig would be parked down on the main road, and we have to drive it down a dirt road and load it up onto the truck. And so it came in super handy. And it was all about Yankee Ingenuity. Really what Yankee Ingenuity is it's not taking no for an answer. It's a go-go scenario, right? So we have to find a way. We have to be resourceful. And I talked about a couple days ago about resourcefulness is only found when resources run out. That's when you find resourcefulness. And those early days at Origin, it was only resourcefulness. We didn't have any capital. We didn't have any knowledge. There was no old timers to show us the ways. It was gone. Manufacturing was all but dead. And it was such a naive mission at the same time, because everyone I talked to said, "You're crazy. This is gone. It's dead. It's never coming back. Let it go." Even my accountant, a bird just smashed off the window behind me. I was hoping it was a ruffed grouse, but it's not. Even my accountant sat down with me and my wife in our kitchen and said, how much more pain do you guys want to go through? Like, what is it about what you're doing that is so important? Because you're going to go bankrupt. And we had already lost everything. Just years earlier during the 2008, 2009 recession, we had already lost everything. And now we were back in this position. And that's where the power of purpose comes to light, when your mission is greater than any one thing or any one problem or current circumstance or hurdle you need to overcome. And one of those biggest hurdles, and call it divine intervention, the Origin way, was after we built the factory and we found a couple of sewing machines and we started to learn how to sew. I couldn't find the fabric in the United States of America that we needed to make our jiu-jitsu gis. And I called around all the mills and asked them if they could weave this fabric, and we couldn't find any. And finally we found one. And the mill said to me, "We need at least 100,000 yard order." And that was like $1 million. And you've heard me say in the past, and I'll say it again, at that point we didn't have 2 nickels to rub together or a bucket to piss in. The factory, as a matter of fact, was running off of generator power from the beginning, and there was no bathroom in it. And my early employees would have to run down to my house and use the bathroom during the day. So it was really just a sheer force of will. And I was in Lewiston, Maine, talking with this old timer Mo, who sold me our first sewing machines, our old Singer sewing machines. And he could tell I was just deep in thought, trying to figure out what was next, because a stage 1 business is all reckless. Like Yankee Ingenuity, they should call it not Yankee Ingenuity, they should call it reckless ingenuity. Like Joe moving a safe, dropping it into the basement of his house, hoping something doesn't snap, with no safety gear and no real plan, just an idea in his head he thinks he's going to be able to realize in that contraption he built. And I told Mo, I said, I think I need a loom. And this old timer, he said to me, "Well, get in my truck." And I got in his truck and we drove a couple blocks up, and he brought me into this old abandoned mill. I met this old woman, Rachel, he introduced me to. She had me sign a release, and then she took me up into this really deteriorated old mill building. And there in front of that mill building, 100 yards away, was a loom. And I immediately knew that was our future. I didn't know enough not to know that it was just a frame, that it was dead, that it never should run again, that the Chinese left it behind and they took all the good ones because this one wasn't worth saving. And you know the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. That's all I saw. I saw treasure, and I didn't know enough not to know. And that is responding to things you can't control. Like, you can't control what you can't control, but you can control the way you respond to things you can't control, even if that thing is trash. And in this instance, it was trash. Nobody wanted it. And this older woman, Rachel, she said I could have it for a couple $1,000s. She was going to put it in a museum. And it was Joe who figured out how to get this thing out of there. We didn't have the money to move it from a traditional rigging company. It was like $20,000 to move it. And so Joe and another friend of his and a bunch of guys I trained jiu-jitsu with, we moved that thing off of the second floor. Joe actually, there was a forklift that hadn't been run in, I don't know, 20 years. He took the battery out of his truck. He got this old forklift running. It was unbelievable and totally reckless. We were in shorts and sneakers. We didn't have gloves, safety glasses, hard hats. We could have fallen through the floor. We could have fell out of the building. The loom could have snapped and dropped on somebody. It wasn't quite tethered right. It was very, very risky. And at the same time, it had to be done because of the power of purpose. And we got that old machine out of there, that old loom. I called it the Dragon. It was made around the same year I was born. And we got it into the woods of Maine, and we used that forklift to drag it into our little timber frame factory. And over that winter, we brought it back to life. If I knew what we were going to go through today, I don't know if it would have happened. I don't know if I would have had the fortitude to see it through. The gift, the blessing was not knowing. And as an entrepreneur in early stage business, it's the not knowing that is the magic. It's the thing you don't know. And that's what entrepreneur means. That is the definition of it. You're going to figure it out. You're going to find a way. You're going to do something someone else was unwilling because you need to disrupt the market. You need to disrupt this thing. You need to change the game. You need to get the thing out of your head and into the world. And that loom truly was the beginning. I don't think there was anybody else on the earth that would have looked at that loom and said, that's an important part of the reclamation and the renaissance of bringing manufacturing back to America. I don't know. Maybe it was just meant to be. I believe it was. I believe that the dominoes fell the way they were supposed to. And Joe and what he does, and he's never lost that mindset of Yankee ingenuity. He hasn't been affected, so he's always finding a way. He's always being resourceful. When I see him doing something like that, moving a 2,000-pound safe into his basement with the same old machine that got Origin started, it's just a sight to behold. Staying true to who you are for the right reasons. So, an important lesson today